Grow Great is a city government leadership podcast with Lisa Norris and me, Randy Cantrell. Each week we share insights, experiences, and wisdom to help you and your leadership grow great. Our website is growgreat.com.
All right, we have recently been talking about the very hot topic nowadays in city government, which is AI. Rolling it out, how do we navigate it? What are cities doing? We've talked with Micah, who is a deputy city manager in Arizona, and we now got Robert that he referred us to. Robert, you're doing a lot with AI as part of a council of governments. Why don't you introduce yourself to our podcast listeners? Tell us a little bit about who you are and what you're doing, and then we'll just go from there.
Sure, thank you. I'm Robert Hyatt. I'm the executive director for the Upper Coastal Plain Council of Governments. We're located in North Carolina, and we have a 5-county region, Edgecombe, Halifax, Nash, Northampton, and Wilson counties. And we're located about an hour east of Raleigh. So we are a rural and suburban area. And our total population is about 300,000, and we are fully engaged in moving our area into the AI age.
Well, tell us a little bit about, I thought it was an interesting concept. You sent me a little bit of information. You've actually kind of started an AI academy that I found really interesting, because in city governments, we're just getting into AI at the city of Grand Prairie. I know other cities have moved into it maybe a little quicker than we have, but certainly it seems like local government is maybe a little bit more behind than private sector and others who are moving through it quick. Can you tell us a little bit about what you've done there? Because I thought it was fascinating, and it's available to us in local government if we need it.
Sure. So I do want to say that I have professional certifications in AI and generative AI engineering, and then a lot of other specializations in subsets of those. So as I've been participating in the public space over the last couple of years, I realized that a lot of these AI presentations and a lot of the AI speakers, they're covering things at a very high level. And of course, that's good to introduce people to topics. But the challenge is when you leave the conference and you come back to your city or county government or the COG, and then you're trying to implement. And what you get in a lot of these workshops doesn't equate to a local playbook. So what I decided to do is I created an AI Academy, and it provides foundational AI training for a COG or a local government, city, county, or any type of public entity, really. And it gives you that good foundational knowledge where if you know that, you're going to be well equipped to deal with any future AI tool or product that comes your way, because you're going to understand how AI works, how to deal with it, how to create things with it, how to govern it, and then you'll and then work with the various tools that get released. I mean, AI is changing about every 6 weeks, but you don't have to chase the latest tool or the latest fad, but you do have to have a foundational knowledge to be able to adapt and adjust in the future. So the AI Academy is trying to solve that problem, which is develop the local playbook. And the very first course that we have in the Academy is designed to help you do an AI organizational assessment to figure out what is your AI readiness, to help you understand what the risks are, what the positives are, and to help you create a roadmap for how to implement AI in your organization. All the rest of the courses build from there. It gives you that foundational knowledge, And after you have your roadmap, all the rest of the courses build subject matter expertise.
That's awesome. And you said anybody can take this. There is a fee for it, which is fine. You spent a lot of time and effort developing this, but you don't have to be part of your region in order to take that, correct? Because we have listeners across the states. Any of us in local government, if we want to pay for that, there's a small fee, but we can take that academy, correct?
You can.
Yeah.
It's available to the public. We've got links on our website. I've sent y'all a brochure. Maybe y'all can link
We can
that,
post it. Yeah, you bet.
and that'll take you right there. And there's really two ways to access it. I've designed an annual subscription to the Academy, and what that is that gives you the foundational courses. And then as I develop new content, I'm going to add all new content to the annual subscription tier, so you automatically get it. For those that don't want to deal with an annual subscription, I also have each of the individual courses out there that could be obtained individually. So I'm trying to give people the best of both options there to get that foundational training that they need.
Well, perfect. And there's typically what I've found, and I think I've heard you say before as we talked, there's really no playbook on this currently. And I know one thing we were looking at and one thing you've addressed is we kind of talked as a leadership team of, well, how do we even start this? And right now, what we're doing, probably like a lot of cities or public sector, is we're like, hey, we found this, go try this. Hey, here's chat. Hey, Copilot's got an enterprise license now. We just recently implemented Madison AI on a test case, which does internal documents and council communications, et cetera. If somebody were to ask you, how do we do this? What is the best approach? Because IT always tries, their goal is to provide us a safe and stable environment. And a safe and stable environment may not always match to what AI is capable of. That may create nervousness of what we could put out there unintentionally, what we would get ourselves into and not know we just violated something. What do we do, Robert, in your opinion, to roll out a successful AI strategy, and what suggestions might you have?
Well, the first thing that I would recommend doing is setting up essentially a steering committee. It's called different terminology depending on what speaker is talking to you about AI, but essentially it's a steering committee. And what their job is to figure out an organizational strategy for AI for your city or county or council of governments or other entity. And you want to make sure that steering committee has representation from the entire organization. So, it might not be that every department head serves on that, because I know some governments are large and they have a lot of department heads. But at some level, you have to have enough representation on that steering committee where you can get a good idea of what your needs are, and your appointees are able to communicate that back and then work together to develop an organizational strategy. Now, the city or county manager or the COG director, they might be part of that steering committee, or maybe they've delegated it out. But at the end of the day, that steering committee can create this comprehensive strategy, and you can identify things that need to be considered for safety, security, governance, privacy, confidentiality, all of that. And then you can identify other needs that need to be incorporated, put them together, and that's where the leadership comes in. The leaders ultimately have to make the decision. Now, I know that in the public sector, look, a lot of stuff that we deal with is public record. So if it falls in the realm of public record, I don't really understand why there needs to be restrictions on that particular tool. I've talked with different people all over the country, and you may have some groups that say, hey, we're going to block Google for all the employees. Well, okay, but Google is on the leading edge of some of the tools that might need to be in the AI toolbox for your city or county to be the most responsive or proactive. And then it would make no sense to ban that. So, I mean, you can have this same conversation about any tool, but it's better when you're addressing these things as a team, as a steering committee. You've got recommendations, you've thought about all the angles, and then ultimately the top leadership needs to make the call on that.
Have you seen that this does IT typically lead those steering committees, or like is it the CIO, or have you seen other things evolve in how you manage these committee and who actually leads it in your years of working on this project and doing AI involvement with public entities?
So since AI has been released to the masses, you've seen a role develop called the Chief Artificial Intelligence Officer, or the CAIO. So I serve as the CAIO for our COG. And in a city or county government, look, that might be the IT director. Uh, Sometimes they wear both hats. But it could be somebody else. The chief artificial intelligence officer, I mean, they should understand technology at a basic level. But they also need to be able to consider other points of view, to understand how different services are being delivered. What does planning need? What does social services need? What does public works need? And the CAIO's role really is to help come up with this organizational strategy and then get it implemented and then adapt and as you need to as the environment changes. I believe under the new AI strategy plan that's been released by the White House in August, ultimately we're all going to probably have to designate a CAIO for our organizations.
Mm-hmm.
So it doesn't always have to be the IT director. It can be other individuals.
Do you think is it more of obviously it's a technical position because you have to understand it, but it also sounds like it's highly strategic since you talked about knowing what your customers need, whether you're a county, a city, a state, whomever that's public sector. It really sounds like it has to address the strategic side of your customers' needs to effectively roll out the tools that are needed, identify them, and then create boundaries, rules, whatever you talked about to make it safe. Are you finding that more in that role, or is it kind of similar to a CIO, just over AI specific?
I think that environment is still developing right now. Again, where governments have IT departments, you do see them sort of leaning on the IT department to help get it done. There's no right or wrong approach. It's just that, IT, they're very specialized. They're worried about, delivering that safe, secure, reliable environment for everybody with any tool. And they might not necessarily have the time to really understand how these other departments use the tools or need to use the tools and do all the exploration that might need to be done. There are certainly case studies out there that if you don't have a balanced steering committee, then things could tilt a little bit more towards IT and be overly technical, and that can create challenges elsewhere in the organization. But you can develop a CAIO pretty easily. Take my academy courses, and then you could have a CAIO who understands how to do your organizational assessment, how generative AI works, how to do all the prompt engineering, and then work with the data all the way to governance. So whoever that CAIO is, they do need to understand how generative AI works. They need to know how to use it. They need to know how to produce things with it, and they need to understand the governance, because that's your legal stuff right there. And I'll give you an example. there are cases out there, and this is public and private sector. Every week there's something. This week it was Deloitte paying back $400,000 to a government for using AI to develop a study, and then nobody proofread it. That easily searchable out there. It's all over LinkedIn right now. Deloitte has cleaned things up. I'm sure, but in any organization, there's a risk that um, you know, people who, if they're using AI and they don't understand it can literally create a liability for your organization, whether you're public or private. So if you're going to introduce it, you want to make sure that people are trained, and you want to make sure you're giving them a platform to use it, and you want to make sure that whoever is driving the train for your organizational strategy is capable of working with everybody in the organization to develop and implement that strategy.
I love it. I think it's a pretty fascinating. It's probably not a tool. It's a new, it's got a lot of use cases. I've dabbled in it myself just for different things, and it's proved really helpful. But you're right. You definitely have to validate what it produces. And I've learned, you mentioned prompts. I've been learning to include better prompts, like asking it to cite locations or cite references in the law, or and that helps, because then when I give it to our legal team for things that I've researched, this is where I got it from. I'm not a legal expert. Can you validate that this is accurate for our organization? Whether it applies to local government or not, things like that. So the prompts do matter. And you're right. We have a specialist in IT that just kind of helped train us. They just did an hour, and she gave us examples and how to save prompts, which I didn't know you could do. Just simple things that are increasing our knowledge and use of the tools. But I'm sure there's many cities well ahead of us, and I'm sure there's many cities behind that haven't even started utilizing it yet. But I think your information is not only interesting, but helping cities to get educated on it, relevant to local government and relevant to public sector, is going to be huge. And I want to thank you in advance. I haven't taken the courses, but just developing it as a starting point where it's accessible for us, I know will be beneficial for all those that want to get started.
And look, for public entities who don't have an IT department, or maybe they contract those services out, the academy is very useful, because you still need to develop internal talent, and somebody needs to drive the train. Mm-hmm. If you look at the most recent data out there, 75% of employees in organizations are using AI, whether or not the employer endorses it. They're using it. Mm-hmm. And they're bringing it in-house, and that's called shadow AI. And somewhere around 45% to 50% of employees are using shadow AI in the workplace, which essentially means they're using free or personal subscriptions, and they're developing work products, and they're bringing it in back to the work environment and passing it off as, hey, I did this here. So what happens from a risk or insurance liability if you have somebody who developed something with a free or personal subscription and confidential information got leaked out? Like I said, we're getting into new territory because people are using these tools. And so it benefits the public sector organization to have a steering committee and to have a conversation about what's out there and what tools do we need.
And how to use them, right? And how to use them properly.
Because
like, to your point, they're going to use them whether we authorized it or not.
True. And so, like I said, what happens if somebody who really isn't trained and they use it to develop a city policy that it looks right, but somehow it gets through all the levels of review and it's horribly wrong. And then there's some risk that gets introduced. I mean, that's happened. I mean, I'm not going to name any names, but there's stuff across the public sector where, I mean, it's anything from chat bots to policy development to personnel manual revisions, so on and so forth. And as I mentioned earlier, you have a lot of lawyers who are routinely getting cited for using AI, and they may or may not be trained. I won't speak for them, but and using it, and it cites court cases that don't exist. Now how would that look for a city or a county, to have internal experts or your own legal counsel producing something, and then later it gets out in the public that, yeah, AI made that up. Now that doesn't make AI look good, but when you use it responsibly and people know how to use it, you can use it as a subject matter expert. When this stuff was introduced in November 2022, it was about as smart as a high school student. At the beginning of 2025, it was as smart as a PhD in a few subject areas. And as we're closing this calendar year, it's basically a PhD in everything.
Mm-hmm.
Now, a PhD sounds smart. I know that they are. But if you had a brand new person show up to your work environment, it doesn't matter what their degree level is. They might be really smart and they have lots of potential, but they don't know how you do it at your government. They don't know your procedures. They don't know your people. They don't know the history. And you have to train it just like you would an employee. And a lot of people don't understand that or how to train it. And so that all goes back to that responsible use, so that you don't end up with these legal liability issues.
Have you had any, the ones I'm familiar with, because I'm very new at using it and the things that we are rolling out at the city and trying, we've used Madison AI, which does our internal, it's helping us with council documents, history minutes, all our internal, helps us note what we passed, when we passed it, all that. And of course, we've used ChatGPT and now Copilot since they rolled at the enterprise level. Are there any other tools that you might suggest that exist that city government or others might be interested in the public sector that would help them that you're aware of? Those are the only ones I know about currently.
Well, what I would suggest here is that instead of looking for the tool first, what I would do is I would set up your steering committee,
Yeah.
but survey your employees, figure out at a department level what tasks lend themselves to automation or AI assisted work, and then focus on those, identify potential use cases, and then set up some pilots. And then
Makes sense.
and then move into, because look, 2 years ago on LinkedIn, you'd see these little bitty wheels pop up about AI tools, right? And big icons, text you could read from 100 feet away. And now when I go on LinkedIn, you have these big wheels that take up the whole, image space. And the icon, I need a microscope to read the icons and the text because there's just so many. And I mean, if you look at, let's take communications, for example, right? Communications could benefit from ChatGPT, Copilot, Google Gemini, any of that. They could also benefit from some of the AI avatar image generation, video and lip syncing stuff to create public facing informational pieces, right? And they may be able to actually do it and produce more content that gets out to the public by using those tools. But before you make that investment, you want to make sure that there's actually a use case for it. And so, and this goes back to the whole conference, the high level workshop stuff. People get introduced to this at some super high level. They come back, then they go invest in the tool. It's like they're reverse engineering the process a little bit.
Yeah,
So
makes sense.
again, this is why I go back to reasons that we set up the AI Academy, so that people know where to start and how to build out and scale up responsibly.
Robert, what are one or two examples of low-hanging fruit that a city government could really take advantage of with AI that, wouldn't be a break the bank kind of a thing, but just some no-brainer kind of stuff that you've encountered?
Well, in the knowledge arena, anyone who has to process reports, studies, I think Lisa mentioned meeting minutes and things like that. I mean, we get inundated with information, and I'm sure people in other sectors do as well. But you can take those and you can process these things much faster. I was talking to a group of HR professionals yesterday, and I got asked a similar question, and so I'll give an example. Lisa, how many massive studies or reports do you get sent on a monthly basis that you're expected to read and then do something with or brief other people, and you just don't have a lot of time to actually process it all?
Mm-hmm. Lots of reports.
So,
and laws, right? Laws that have changed.
Yeah. So, think about your planning department or any manager, supervisor, strategic type person where they've got to just process a lot of information and then turn it around. So, I'll give you an example. If I get a 300-page report, in the past, it would take me hours I'd have to read it, figure out what was applicable to me, and then I'd have to take it out, process it, turn it into some localized information, and then I may have to either create something internal for my team, or I may have to create something for my board, and create it and process it at a higher level, and that would take hours. So now when I get that report, I load it up into AI. And I tell it, give me an executive summary of this information. I want to know give me a background. Let me know what the findings are. Identify any key metrics. Identify anything that's relevant to my region, because sometimes the reports are, sometimes they're not. Let me know what the findings are, any best practices, and what are the implementation and next steps. And then I finish it with, please cite the page number and paragraph number of where you find the sources for this. All right, so that takes maybe 5 minutes to create that prompt, or less when I copy it and paste it from elsewhere. Lisa, that's a good point about creating prompt libraries. And so, all right, but say I typed it out 5 minutes. I hit enter. I've attached the report and I hit enter. It takes a minute to scan the whole thing, and then AI starts working. 2 to 3 minutes tops. I've got the executive report with everything I asked for with my citations. The first thing I'm doing is I'm reading what it does, so I get that high level understanding, and then I'm going back and I'm checking the sources that it just gave me, and I'm matching that up. And if I find a mistake, I'll say, hey, wait a minute. On page 45, paragraph 6, this doesn't match up with what you cited. But it is on page 45, paragraph 4. Oh, yes, you're right. And then it'll go back and, do its thing. One thing people need to understand is AI is trained to make you happy, to satisfy you. And so, you have to be that critical thinker when it's producing stuff for you, and you're not going to hurt its feelings by telling it it's wrong. But that's so you take that example. We just produced the report. I've gone through. I've verified the sources are correct, and now I have a document that I can either use internally. I can convert that to a board briefing document to make it a little more high level for board folks who have other jobs than to read government stuff all day. And I mean, I can do a lot of things with it at that point. I can create charts. I can create interactive elements. If Google isn't banned by my IT director, I can go create a podcast from it if I want to. So there's lots of things that just became possible in a much shorter amount of time for a much for less budget than what would have been possible before the age of AI.
What are the compelling reasons why a city should embrace AI?
I think that we're going to have to embrace AI whether the leadership likes it or doesn't like it. I mean, if you read the federal AI action plan, it's basically saying that AI is going to be rolled out across the federal government. It's happening right now. I mean, Google is selling enterprise access and OpenAI is doing it. They're selling it to the federal government for $1. I mean, come on down to my level. Give me that deal. But the federal workforce is going to be trained. And then they're going to have an expectation that the state and the locals who are their sub-grantees, they're going to think, well, you guys understand this, don't you? And you're going to see AI stuff begin to get rolled down in contract and grant award provisions. And we're going to have to use AI to perform some feature of complying with these grants or other rules. And at that point, you better hope the employees understand it, because if they don't, you may not make reporting deadlines, or you might submit stuff that's not right. Or you may waste a lot of time trying to get it right. So it's coming one way or another, and it behooves people to take a proactive stance and learn what this stuff is. And then, like I said, do your steering committee, figure out your strategy, identify some use cases, move forward responsibly. You don't have to do all this at once. But we're living in a world where it's there, it's available, people are using it. The studies and the surveys show staff are using it, whether or not it's the employers providing it or not. So you might want to do it. I mean, think about when Google search first came out, right? And people who knew how to do research and knew how to really use the Google search engine effectively, they could find information before anybody else. And next thing you know, employee 1, 2, and 3, or employees 1, 2, and 3 over here, they're always Johnny on the spot. They've always got the information that I'm looking for right when I need it, or shortly after I ask. And, what if people had banned the Google search engine at that time? So, now we use the Google search engine like it's natural. But you have AI, which further enhances that. So we have to embrace these tools, but you have to do it responsibly, and to give the IT departments, kudos that they deserve. You do need to be aware of what the security risks are. And you do have to provide a safe, stable environment that doesn't compromise confidential or proprietary information.
Yeah, it's interesting because we're implementing Workday across our city. And to your point, at the conference, they just introduced, I believe it was 7 AI agents. That was their announcement at the conference in different areas. Do I understand what that means completely? No, but they did demonstrations. It looks extremely powerful. They look like humans, right? The way they introduced it, I don't know the technology behind it, but it's getting introduced, like you said, whether we understand it or not. And bottom line, I think when we've talked to others, is there's always a fear: is AI going to replace people? And I think the challenge is AI is not going to replace people. People that know AI are going to replace people. that don't. So we got to get on the bandwagon and use it efficiently and correctly in our organizations to be the most efficient we can be, but use it wisely.
And you just brought up a good point. What one person calls an agent, it could very well be something else. And so, real quickly here, a human working with a chat interface is what I call AI assisted. A human working with a pre-trained Copilot or ChatGPT is that is an AI assistant, like an intern. Think about it like an intern that has good subject matter knowledge, and you don't have to give it all this background every time. Then you get into an agent, and what an agent has is an agent has a script, so it has a job description, it has a tool bag, so it can do several things, and it can autonomously go perform those tasks. And then you have to decide where the human comes into the loop. And I'm a proponent of keeping humans in the loop.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have agentic systems, which are teams of agents, and they can perform a wide variety of things, and they're all configured to work together. And so, if you give them a task, so think about agentic systems as a department. You delegate something to the department head; they're looking at what you gave them, and then they're farming pieces out to their employees. Everybody does their thing. It comes back to the department head who puts it together and then gives it to you. And so that's an agentic system. An individual agent can do that, particularly on a task, and it has a tool bag too. But agentic could mean anything from one agent doing a specific set of things to a team of agents, working together. And if you follow the news or you follow the things that are going on in the industry right now, they're pushing agents and agent solutions really hard. In government, we're typically, there was a study by MIT or Stanford that came out not too long ago, and there were these headlines about a large percentage of AI implementations weren't going too well. And one, that was a small subset of people or organizations that they studied. But it boils back to things that we've already talked about, educating people, doing your steering committee, coming up with your strategy, coming up with your use cases. But when you get into the government world, we're dealing with some pretty archaic interfaces and systems.
Mm-hmm.
Our aging program, which is common throughout the United States, it has a federal system that was built in the 90s. Okay, good luck with AI trying to create an agent that's going to understand and navigate that. So, that there's things that agentic solutions are going to solve, and there's things that they're not. Where they can function and carry out independent tasks reliably. They're worth every penny, but I have to caution people about investing a lot in full agentic systems until they understand how does this agentic system integrate with our workflows. Mm-hmm. And if the answer is we don't know or it doesn't work very well, I would put a brake on agents. But again, what somebody calls an agent might simply be a pre-trained AI that maybe to give you an example, maybe it's a planner and they've been trained with planning knowledge, and then when you call them up and you give them a task for planning, it already knows what to do and then gets busy, and you don't have to spend 20 minutes telling it what a planner is and what they do and giving an example of a strategic plan. It already knows all this. So again, all of this stuff can be very productive. But it goes back to the more people understand about what AI is, how it works, how to use it, the more effective they'll be as you scale up and mature as an AI organization.
Thanks for watching and listening to Grow Great, the City Government Leadership Podcast. Our website is growgreat.com. For Lisa Norris, I'm Randy Cantrell. We hope you'll subscribe to the show, and we hope you'll tell a friend.